Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you and the ranking member for hosting this hearing. Dr. Stern, thank you for those comments. I chair the Appropriations Subcommittee and I'm on the Veterans Committee related to veterans, and you've given me some ideas of things that I need to personally pursue with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you. Ms. Deitcher, at least in Kansas, that's how we pronounce your name. Thank you very much for you being here. I guess I would, what you described was very compelling to me, because what you described in your family situation, who you are and the way you conduct your lives and the way your family operates, is the way that I recognize the way so many Kansans live their lives. We don't expect bad things to happen. I'm very sorry. I chair the subcommittee that has responsibility here in the Commerce Committee over amateur and professional sports, and I direct most of my questions to Ms. Fole. Senator Thune and I wrote the CEO of the United States Olympics Committee about 2 months ago, raising questions about sexual activity abuse and harassment within the Olympic Games. And I think kind of a takeaway from the response that we received is that your organization was coming into play. Then the solution to this challenge is going to lie with you. And I would ask you if that's the way you see it, the relationship between the United States Olympic Committee and Safe Sport. What's that relationship, and who has responsibility for these issues?
Thank you, Senator Moran. To quote Dr. Butler, I think it's going to take all of us, first and foremost. We, like USADA, like the U.S. Anti-Doping Association, we were formed, birthed, if you will, within the U.S. Olympic Committee. We would not exist without the support of the U.S. Olympic Committee, financial and otherwise. But we are an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization charged with this issue. That said, all of the 47 NGBs, the national governing bodies of the Olympic sports, all have safe sport responsibilities. They all have their safe sport programs by which they are tasked with implementing training, with making sure all of their coaches and covered individuals, as we call them, are certified related to safe sport. So implementing and really creating a culture that prevents abuse is really important. So we are absolutely working in partnership with the USOC and the national governing bodies. We are independent in terms of our investigations. USOC has retained us, if you will, to investigate all areas of sexual abuse. So any report of sexual misconduct or abuse, we investigate those reports.
Let me ask then, if you're the investigative arm, who's the enforcing arm?
The sanctions, if we have a finding, if you will, from a report, a case, if you will, if we have a finding, that finding goes to the national governing body, and not only must they enforce, and which could be anything up to and including a lifetime ban, not only must that NGB enforce that sanction, but it must be enforced across the Olympic and Paralympic movements.
So when you say they must enforce, what is it that requires them to do so? Why is that not, maybe your report is ignored or just taken as a recommendation, and who determines what the consequence is?
The USOC has has mandated, if you will, that the NGBs adhere to not only the Safe Sport Code, and part of the Safe Sport Code is that the sanctions must be enforced. So in that case, we hand down the sanction, and the USOC and the NGBs themselves make sure that it's enforced.
Ms. Williams, is that any different than the way that the anti-doping agency works?
That's similar, yeah. Well, the USADA has its own ability to... USADA has the ability to hand the sanction down, and then the actual it goes up to the World Anti-Doping Agency, and then their enforcement happens there.
Thank you. And Ms. Fole, it seems to me that this may be a false impression, but that your organization was slow to come into existence, and my impression is it's related to fundraising, the ability to have the necessary resources to do the work that you're setting out to do. Can you assure us that the the dollars, the resources are now available?
Senator, thank you. I think that is a reason that it has taken a while for the center to be up and running. We opened our doors in early March. I will tell you that we have funding from the USOC, from NGBs, and from other charitable organizations. I would ask the committee's support and the Senate's support in authorizing, as Chairman Thune stated at the beginning of his remarks, authorizing the center in legislation would go a long way to establishing our credibility, our place, if you will, in terms of addressing all of these safe sport issues. So make no mistake, we have a ways to go. We need more funding. And part of my job is to go out and raise private sector dollars, foundations, corporations, individuals, in addition.
No one that you know of would object to the legislation that the chairman was describing? Is that
Pardon?
true? No one that you know would object to the legislation that the chairman described?
Not that I know of.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.